If you want to insist that this is a test, but then you're not going to let everybody do the full test, well then should we be satisfied with the test results? This year, we will have cuts at the CrossFit Games. Now, this should not come as a huge surprise to the majority of people because it is far from the first time that we've seen cuts at the Games. However, cuts have been applied pretty inconsistently over the years, so you never really know what you're going to get. And just because we have seen cuts in previous years doesn't necessarily mean people wanted to see them again this year. And if we want to know exactly how the cuts will work this year, I've borrowed this little graphic from Morning Chalk Up to make it nice and simple. As we can see, the field is cut before the Saturday and once again before the Sunday. And not everyone is happy to see this format of cuts. Although I would be very interested to know in the comments below your most controversial pick for who you think won't make it into the top 20. But why can I say that it looks like people are not happy about this format? Well, it isn't just from reading the comments on the Instagram post put out by Barbell Spin or Morning Chalk Up, but I actually put out a poll myself on Instagram asking whether people were for or against the cuts, and 77% of people were against. Now, of course, we could think, well, what does it matter? Their opinion means nothing. They're not the ones in the position to make the call to know what is best for the sport. But it wasn't simply a yes or no answer that I was asking for. I did ask if people could let me know the reasons behind their choice. And that's where things get interesting, because this wasn't a simple coin toss of what people preferred. They had valid reasons for their decisions. And I should say that I also put out a thread asking the same question. So yes, I am now on threads. I very much blame Meme for Time for this. I feel like he forced me on there. But at the same time, it is probably the right platform to have these kinds of discussions. So if you're not following me there, please do, because I think this is going to be the place to ask these kind of questions that will probably feature in future videos. Now, talking about the cuts or the way people view them, I think we have pretty much three camps of people. You've got those that are for the cuts, those that are against having cuts, and a third group that are those that like to have cuts, but maybe just for Sunday. And I think it also depends on how we view things. Are we looking at it from a spectator's point of view or from the viewpoint of an athlete competing at the Games? So the arguments in favour of the cuts very much tend to focus on the spectator experience, it being more exciting, it forcing the athletes to push at every event from the very beginning. Even if it's something that's maybe a bad event for them, they can't just do damage control because that wheelhouse workout, it might not be showing up before the next cut. Or something along the lines of, well, those that get cut, they don't have a chance of winning the Games anyway, and really that's the whole purpose, it's to be there to win, so we're just cutting away dead weight. And of course there is the classic, if you don't want to get cut, just get better. I mean, you're already in the top 40 worldwide, you started in a global competition that has now cut the field quite dramatically down to 40 people, but yeah, you should still get even better than that if you want to compete for the whole duration of the CrossFit Games. And then, of course, we've got that more middle ground view. So yes, let's have cuts, but maybe just on the Sunday. That way, athletes have a bit more time. They can experience more of the Games. They can do a little bit of damage control if they've had one event maybe that hasn't gone quite as well as they would have liked. But it gives them more opportunities to get over the cut line, or at least to experience more of the Games before getting cut for the final day of competition. Or maybe we want to keep this same format with the cuts, but we just think it would be nice to let athletes know in advance, not wait for them to qualify for the Games, but at the beginning of the season announce the schedule, including the cuts that would happen at the CrossFit Games. At least this way athletes can make informed decisions about what they want to do, knowing that they might only get a couple of days at the CrossFit Games if they make it there at all. But it seems like the majority don't like cuts, so why not? What's the problem with cuts? Well, a lot of it has to do with this concept of a test, and just remember how much we loved using the word test when it came to semi-finals. So here we want to have a test, but you don't want to let all the athletes take part in the whole test. And once you introduce cuts, well, now the order of events takes on even greater importance. If all the things that I'm bad at are loaded at the front of the competition, I'm probably not making it through the cut. Whereas if they'd come later and I'd already made it past the cut, those finishes, they're probably not going to be quite as low. And also there are going to be less people that can get between me and the people winning the events. And yes, an athlete that is in the bottom half of the table might have no chance to make it onto the podium, but it doesn't mean they can't affect the podium by stealing points from other athletes. And of course it means the programming is going to matter more than ever, particularly before the cuts. If it doesn't appear to be fair and balanced, we're going to feel like certain athletes are only making it through because they excel in particular areas of fitness. And with the different style of events that we see at the CrossFit Games, it starts to feel like a multidisciplined sport. It would be very strange to remove someone from a pentathlon because they didn't do great in the swim when we know they're a master fencer, and that's coming up next. And let's not forget about the athletes themselves, how hard they're having to work, how many sacrifices they make just to qualify for the games, how much they're having to spend to physically travel to the games. Now in that case, wouldn't it be a kindness just to allow them to compete for all 4 days? And that's not out of sympathy for the athletes or as some kind of participation trophy that we're giving them. It's thinking about the opportunities that 4 days of competition affords them. That's 4 days they can guarantee to potential sponsors. Maybe that wheelhouse workout does show up in the later part of the competition. And even if they don't win it, maybe they get a top 5 finish. It's getting their name out there, creating new opportunities for them. And surely we want to see more people having those opportunities, being able to earn money within CrossFit. Because when we think about who might get cut from the CrossFit Games, we're probably not thinking about the biggest named athletes, those that have already in place the best sponsorship deals, that maybe have the least hardship to make it to the Games, are we? So we want that there is an opportunity for more people to make a name for themselves, to make money within CrossFit. Not just because this could attract more people to CrossFit, but think about it from the other side of the fence. What if this is something that could discourage people from pursuing CrossFit, knowing how hard they have to work, how many sacrifices they're going to have to make, how much money they're going to pay out for potentially half a competition? And speaking of half a competition, just put yourselves in the shoes of a friend or family member of one of the athletes who's spending money to travel, to stay, tickets for the games, and you're only going to get to see them compete for 2 days. Now, of course, we cannot forget that some of the most memorable moments from the CrossFit Games were only possible because we had a smaller field of athletes. And yes, maybe 40 athletes is too many. But if we wanted to have less athletes at the Games, maybe there are other options. For one, we could just qualify less athletes to the Games in the first place. But if we wanted to do that, then CrossFit would really have to make the semi-finals something special if they're only going to be sending a few people to the Games. Or just let people know right away when you lay out the season, here's the Open, quarterfinals, semi-finals, the Games, cut 1, cut 2. People can't complain if they already know what the deal is before they sign up for it. And speaking of the season as a whole, let's not forget about the worldwide ranking, something that helps you get spots for your region for the CrossFit Games. As I was putting together this video, I saw a post from Scaled It, and they were asking about the effect that cuts would have on the worldwide ranking. And it's an excellent question, because once I'm cut, my position is locked. So those 2 days extra, yes, I might not have been able to make it onto the podium or even into the top 10, but could I have climbed a few more spots that would have boosted my worldwide ranking and potentially had a bigger effect on my region as a whole? Now, of course, how we feel ultimately isn't going to affect anything that happens at the CrossFit Games this year, but could it be that through the multitude of counsellors and the different ideas we raise, well, maybe CrossFit might take some of these things on board, and who knows if they'll implement any of it in the future. And even if CrossFit don't care whether or not you personally like the cuts, I do, so please let me know in the comments if you're for or against cuts, and if so, why? And I suppose a final thought would be that in retrospect, the cuts really shouldn't surprise us. CrossFit already cut a lot of their workforce this year, so why would we think the athletes are safe?